The Bears are the most interesting team of this offseason, and I don't think it's even remotely close. You have a coach that has been considered the A candidate for at least the last 2 years, but if you've been reading the MMQB coaches list, we called him a McVay in the making 3 years ago. So just wanted to let everyone know that before he started really calling plays for the Lions. Um, we have this guy who has such a runway of anticipation. Everybody is enamored with his designer play calling, but is a quirky guy. There's no doubt about it. We saw it in the opening press conference. Chicago is a ravenously difficult market to coach in. Caleb Williams is a quarterback whose dad is on record as saying, we thought about not coming here and just signing him with the USFL with the San Antonio Rattlers for a year so that he could go play with the coach that he wanted to play with. All that to be said, we have this could either be phenomenal and Caleb is incredibly talented, or it could be a giant disaster. And I get, again, we put it on people like that in the media, but the Bears did everything right to this point. They got the coach, they got the quarterback, they got the talent, they rebuilt the offensive line. They've been smart with everything, which is why, Ryan Poles gets the extension. But what did you leave with here? Because I'm fascinated. Like, what did this look like in person to you?
Well, Caleb didn't look great. And I think like part of this plays into how difficult the market is. I think like I'd say like Chicago, Cleveland,
Philly,
Chicago and Cleveland are kind of alike as like pro football markets. Just
because they're conditioned to the losing and are
well, I think
cynical.
I think it's like the intensity, like so those places, it's not. Well, the NFL team's number one everywhere. So the NFL team's number one here. The NFL team has always been number one in those places, right? The Browns have always been number one in Cleveland. The Bears have always been number one in Chicago. So it's the most important team to the market. And not just because the NFL is king. It's been the most important team in the market for 100 years.
Right.
So there's that. There's the intensity of that. The intensity of football in those cities. And like, I think because of the failures of those franchises, a new coach comes in and he's almost saddled with it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think like it can be unfair, but like in a lot of cases, I think there's this fatalism in those markets where it's like, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, and so, the same way like Kevin Stefanski had to fight through and wear the failures of Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson and Mike Pettin and Rob Jasinski. Ben Johnson comes in and to some degree he has to like wear the failures of Matt Nagy and John Fox and Mark
Trestman.
Yeah, and so like I think that there's that element of it, like where there's that here we go again. Like when something goes wrong in a guy's first training camp, and I say that as the backdrop here because I think it's important to what I saw, which was Caleb Williams did not look good the day I was there. And I've said this a few different places. I wrote it. His first snap of the practice I was at, he didn't recognize the blitz package Dennis Allen was throwing at him. The rush got to him right away. And he threw the ball away off balance and it fell 5 yards short of the boundary. So throwing the ball away blind inbounds. A couple plays later, threw the ball out to the flat. No one was there. A couple plays after that, throws it to the opposite flat. Like right into the hands of a blitzing DB, where if the DB had reacted quick enough and caught it, it would have been a pick six. And so when Bears fans see that, when Bears fans hear that, they're like, oh my God, here we go again. And there's either the reaction to like, now I got to prepare myself for another disappointment, or like, let's go after the reporter who said it. Which I can take, which is fine. You know what I mean? But I think
that.
It's,
I love that, by the way, and it's different because if you are in a quote unquote
they're
national
defensive
role,
about it, they're defensive.
Yeah, and if you're a quote unquote national role and you go see a camp and you point out something like, whatever. One time it was maybe EJ Manuel, like almost killing someone and throwing a ball into like a hospitality tent. It's like, oh, but you're not here every day. You don't
Right.
understand like the fact that like you haven't been
Which is
charting him
true.
since he was 11 years old in AAU ball like I have. And
Right.
it's like, okay, but I can also see that what's happening in this
Yeah.
moment. Also, we can ask the coaches about it afterwards. Like,
But that's
imagine
what
that.
and that brings me to the second part of it, which is why I don't ever draw conclusions on those things, but I ask
Yeah.
about them. You know what I mean? Like, and when something looks that way, I'm going to ask about it. I'm not going to say something without context. And that's why there's an important piece of context here, which is that Ben Johnson is trying to force feed the offense to Caleb and trying to throw everything at him. And they went through the spring this way and they started the summer this way. And it's, let's see what he can handle. Let's take the kid gloves off. Let's give him everything.
And
And
guess who
then,
else did that?
huh?
Guess who made his bones as a coach doing that with the chaos drill? Dan Campbell. I mean, that's
Right,
like,
right,
that's and it
right.
should look a little uncomfortable, right? It should
So,
look a little shitty.
and that's done where you're prioritizing his development, Caleb Williams' development, over what it looks like for someone like me. You know what I mean? Or what it looks like for a fan who's sitting there in the stands. And the idea is we're going to accelerate his learning by giving him a lot, seeing what he can handle. And then when we get closer to the season, we'll start to prioritize his performance and his confidence by narrowing down what we're doing to what we found he can do well. And it takes time to go through that, and it takes time to do that. And that context is important. It's just more difficult to pull that off in a place like Chicago, where every snap and every throw a young quarterback makes is going to be scrutinized like it's the third quarter of the Super Bowl. And so I think that part of it is, I think Ben has a very defined vision for what he wants to do and what he wants it to look like and how he's going to get there. And everything you hear talking to people in that building, and this is not coming from Ben himself, is how detailed the plan is, how everything is mapped out, and there's a way they're going to get to the opener, and there's a way they're going to get to where they want to be in October, and there's a way they're going to get to where they want to be at the end of the season. And sometimes when you I mean, what's that line from Tommy Boy about the
I can
about
get
the
a good
bull?
look at a what is it?
You can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a bull's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. Is it something like that? Was it something like that? I don't know.
It is. I
I,
I was
but I think that's it, right? Isn't that it?
yes. I can get a good look at a bull by sticking my head
No,
up his
no,
ass,
yeah.
but I'd
I
rather
think you
take
can get a
the
good
butcher's
look at a
word for it.
T-bone by sticking your
A
head up a
T-bone.
bull's ass. Yeah.
That's what it
You can
was.
get you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a bull's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. I don't think I have that exactly right, but I think I'm close.
By the way, you are acting like you got flamed by Bears fans here. I'm on our YouTube channel, which you guys should be too. And I'm checking out the Breer report, which is great. And when you're done looking at this, you should always look at that because if you like this, then you're gonna like that. Look at the comments on this. From Ronnie Delarsnia. Most intelligent analysis I've seen to date. Well done. At 346 RT. Many thanks, Albert. Bears fan here. I guess, right?
Good, good.
From Ken Cub 09. Breer is a star. Look at this.
There you go. Here's
Amazing.
the point, though. I don't need to be brown nosed here. I'm good. Thanks, Bears fans. I appreciate that support. But a point is, like, a lot of people focus on what I said, like Caleb looked terrible the day I was there. Part of that's intentional. You know what I mean? And here's the interesting thing about it to me, though, is like everybody saw, and here this is where we go back to the analogy about sticking your head up a bull's ass. Nobody was paying attention to like the part where Ben Johnson was doing this in Detroit. You know what I mean? Because nobody was micromanaging what Jared Goff looked like, right? So I don't think anybody was going to Lions training camp in 2022 and being like, "Oh my God, like look at Jared." this stuff was happening there too. You know what I mean? Like this was,
Right.
and so I think the context of it is you have one of, if not the most intense football market in the country.
Hmm.
Um, I'd say Philly, Cleveland, Chicago. I like we should do a ranking of that at some point, but I think those three to me just kind of stick out in my head. You think that's fair?
Fair.
Philly, Cleveland, Chicago. So the most intense football market in the country, arguably, and then a quarterback drafted number one overall, and a coach who is going to come in and do trial by fire development. And I think when you add those things together, you can get this cauldron. And I do think like to some degree, like it might wind up being good for Caleb, like having to go through this where, you're not the king of the world anymore. And now you're going to be held responsible a little bit, and there's going to be a tough love approach to it. And I don't think Ben's going to pull punches with Caleb, and it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out.
Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get those draft boards ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, overreactions, and more. It's all happening with Yahoo Fantasy this year. The MMQB and myself are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first timer or a vet making your millionth league, guys, this is the greatest time of year. Yahoo is the best place to the way that they organize their drafts, the way that they help you sort all your players. I love every year logging into this. It's like coming home to one of your favorite things every year. It means friends, it means football, it means your draft party at your favorite restaurant, and Yahoo is always a part of that. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over the next 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League today at yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. That's yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. Just want to, speaking of you just getting clobbered by the Chicago market, I really and truly enjoyed, you got clipped from 98.5 The Sports Hub, and the headline on the YouTube channel is, "Can Ben Johnson lead the Bears? Albert Breer isn't sure." And then they put a still frame of your face that looks like the other side of your hotel room has just caught fire. And it is so good. I'm just going to send it to the group chat right now. I just want to have your reaction
This
to
is
it.
why I
It's
don't pay attention to anything people aren't. I don't know. This is why I don't pay attention. Oh,
look at
here it is.
that photo. Is that
There
not
you
the
go.
worst photo that they could have possibly chosen of you in that moment?
Oh man, that's not fire, by the way. That was a siding in the hotel room. That
No.
was
I'm just saying you're looking like the room is on fire. Like you're very concerned about something that's happening all the way over to, it would be stage left. You're right.
yeah.
It's just
But
this is training camp,
that
guys.
was actually the wall. That's the Lincolnshire Resort. Lovely,
Ooh,
nice little Marriott property.
hey.
Price is right. Yeah, really, really nice running trail. Right there too. Um, I would recommend the Lincolnshire to anybody looking to stay in the northern Chicago suburbs. It was nice there.
That's what's up. With Ben in particular, I mean, you mentioned, and this is what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Just how is he moving around? Like I'm always interested in the coach's vibes, right? Because Ben at Lions practice was walkie-talkie in hand, like halfway down the sideline, locked into the play,
Yeah.
and then if something happened, like he would make his way around. Every coach kind of does the interpersonal stuff differently. What did you see from him?
Yeah, I would say Ben was what I saw was someone who was very involved with the quarterback,
Yeah.
and is really dialed in. And I think, um, in Detroit, they had layers of coaching with the quarterback. Mark Brunell was there, Ben was there. When Johnny Morton was the senior assistant, he was in the room. Tanner Angstrom was involved. And so I think stacking the quarterback room, like that was a piece of what they did in Detroit with Jared Goff and building that offense and really trying to empower Goff.
Hmm.
And so you see that in Chicago where, he's part of the group that's really involved and dialed in on what the quarterback is doing. So It did feel to me like he, at least, the day I was there, was very like hands-on with Caleb and the other quarterbacks and Case Keenum and Tyson Bagent. By the way, like I think that's a really interesting quarterback room, because I think Case Keenum can be a really great resource for Caleb. Um, I know what Case was for CJ Stroud. Like CJ Stroud would tell you now, like having him in that room was so important to me, and so I think Case Keenum can be a great resource for Caleb that way. And Tyson Bagent, like the offense looked pretty good when he was in there. I, I wonder, I do wonder, like if he puts a couple nice games together in the preseason, does somebody try to make a run at trading for him?
He did
He's
my
an
favorite training camp thing ever, which
he has
is
some, but he has
for
some playing experience now too. And he's
he
actually played in
does
real.
for 2 hours after practice. He was taking snaps with starting center Drew Dahlman, which is such a G move when you're like third string QB on the depth chart to that nobody's gonna outwork me guy. And it is like if I'm Caleb Williams, it's just like that you're better than him and you don't even want to worry about it, but you're just like, God damn it, stop doing stuff like that. Like it's just gonna piss me off. But
That's actually interesting, because I remember having. Have I ever told you the Mahomes story about on that?
no.
This was really interesting. So this was when Mahomes was a rookie. I remember hearing this story. I heard this story, like, so he wins the MVP his first year starter in 18, but what, like, Matt Nagy so Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator in 17 there. I think the enemy was running backs. Kafka, I believe, was quarterbacks. So what those guys, once you get past training camp, it's really hard for for a backup quarterback to get much work. Everything's focused on getting the starter ready to play week to week and all of that. And so Mahomes would stay after practice in Kansas City, right? Like, and basically like mimic the script from team periods after, to get the work in that he was missing by not being the starter, right?
Wow.
So he would be, so he'd run the scout team in practice, but he wanted to get reps running the Chiefs offense, so he would do that on his own after practice. But he never asked one of the starters, never asked anybody who was one of quote unquote Alex's guys, to stay out with him. So at the time it was like Tyreek Hill, and I can't remember who else was on the team. It was probably like Chris Connolly, right? Like, I think like those guys.
Yeah.
But he never ever even asked one of those guys who was actually playing to stay after with him. And the reason why was because he knew if he did that, he could create division on the team. And like, I remember, I think it was Nagy who told me, he was like, that's one of the most self-aware things I've ever seen a young player do. It's like he wanted
For
to get the work
sure.
in. He wanted to get the work in. And like, so how do I get the work in without upsetting the balance of the team, being the 10th overall pick? And so he would pick practice squad guys who were never going to get into a game to work with him after practice. I just thought it was such an interesting anecdote. And like, I remember like talking to people about that after, and said, yeah, that's the result of being the son of a pro athlete who understands locker room dynamics and understands like the way, like how like one little action like that can really affect the team in a way that the player may not even know, like may not even be aware that it's affecting the team.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one reason why Alex Smith and Mahomes have remained so close, and
Yeah.
why, because it's just, to me, like, that was such an interest. I don't know. I know that's a big aside, but the best quarterback in football now, but when he was a rookie, like, he had the self awareness to stay away from anybody who was actually playing the games on Sunday, not because he was afraid to ask them or what. It was because he didn't want to upset the chemistry of the team.
See, I was always like that. Even as an offensive lineman in high school, I would go to the optional quarterback throwing sessions, and I would make myself available until it was clear that I was disrupting timing on routes, because I couldn't unhitch the trailer. I just couldn't get out of my brakes fast enough, and so But it's about selflessness, and that really is
I
what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I've always like I've always thought about like if you're the backup quarterback and if the starter was struggling, would you passive aggressively start warming up?
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
you know what I mean?
That's the
Like,
move.
yeah, like if the quarterback's not the starting quarterback's on the ropes, like, and like say he's had a bad month, and there's like local sports talk radio is tearing him apart, and put the backup in, and then yeah, like goes out there and has like a rough quarter. Do you start warming up on the sidelines?
That's why a guy like Sam Hartman, who's probably like whatever. I mean, he's like the best looking person in the NFL. Like if all of a sudden, you just pop that helmet off, you flip your hair and you just start slinging 50-yard passes, and they don't have to be accurate. They don't have to be on time, but then you get a bunch of reporters over on the side just being like, "Wow, what's going on here?" I don't know. Just give people the idea that you might be able to do it.